many requests that the motion calls for is for the Executive to commission an assessment of the extent of abuse and neglect in Northern Ireland, to liaise and work with the authorities in the Irish Republic and to report to the Assembly. Whilst I believe an assessment should be made in relation to the scale of what occurred in Northern Ireland, I feel that this should not turn into an inquiry. Furthermore, we should recognise that the circumstances in Northern Ireland were very different than those in the Republic of Ireland. Mr Deputy Speaker, the desire of victims for justice and acknowledgement is both natural and important, and I have moved this amendment as I remain seriously concerned that to follow the road of the Ryan inquiry would deny victims the kind of acknowledgement and justice that they most need. The lack of a focus on criminal prosecutions and indeed the agreement to immunity from prosecution for those guilty of such abuse is the most fundamental flaw in the inquiry and not one that serves any of the victims. It is my belief that this Assembly should not move forward in a manner that denies natural justice and indeed would give protection to those guilty of such crimes. It is my concern, Mr Deputy Speaker, that we do not hastily move to follow the example of an inquiry which has left many victims feeling let down and still seeking justice. We must start by considering what we already know about the scope of past abuse in Northern Ireland and the most effective mechanisms for addressing the needs of victims. My understanding is that much of the information held within the Catholic diocese has been passed to the police and that any outstanding information is from Catholic orders which work on an international basis. I am extremely sceptical about an inquiry, as it is highly unlikely that it will, in effect, deliver anything for victims. I say this for a number of reasons. Firstly, it will tell us nothing that we do not already know. Secondly, the extent of clerical abuse in institutions in Northern Ireland is unlikely to be the same as that in the Irish Republic, given our much more regulated environment, better child protection systems in Northern Ireland in general, and particularly when compared to the Irish Republic and the separation from the state and church. Thirdly, any inquiry is very likely to be time-consuming and draw in massive resources which will divert attention from children and survivors of abuse who need help now. Remember, the Ryan report took 9 years and was delayed by a year by the Christian Brothers court case on anonymity. I have no doubt that any such inquiry in Northern Ireland would be set by similar problems, and if you don't mind, I'd like to just continue. I've tabled this amendment as it allows the Executive to assess the extent of the problem and to take action where that is required. Where the identified services are unable to cope, the sexual violence strategy provides the cross-departmental vehicle to address such issues. My primary concern is to ensure that the victims who need access to counselling and support can find this available, and it is therefore important that we are sure that the current level of provision does meet demand and that the victims are not left unsupported. I am, however, also aware that one outworking of the Ryan inquiry has been to provide counselling for victims of abuse, and that is available to those within Northern Ireland as well.